Keep on guessing.
If anyone is online,
Nobody replies to speaking.
no one's here either, right? Review and approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 21st.
So moved. Second.
Okay, second. And I'm appointing a nominating committee today. Anyone that wants to be on it, let me know. And we'll talk about it later. Okay. You've always done it before, but we haven't you?
Yes.
Joe and who?
Peter
Peter.
was on it before.
Okay.
So have we,
Yeah, we still need to vote.
have we appointed?
You haven't voted on minutes yet.
Hi, David, good morning.
We'll do it at the end of the meeting. Can I talk to you first? Is that, they don't know. Is that right? Is that a law or?
I don't believe so.
It is?
Practice, we don't hear.
Sorry.
Yes, it has, did we vote on the minutes?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes, we did. We voted on the
We had
minutes.
a motion and a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will be appointing a nominating committee before the end of the meeting. Okay, financial statements, Mr. Murphy.
Morning, everyone. Over our new fiscal year, I believe the financial should be on your tablet, cover the items we're discussing for the month of July. First page is the operating account activity. We begin the fiscal year with our $4.6 million of operating cash on hand. A few receipts we'll touch upon. We did finalize a land sale, which is in the Innovation Park, over $1.8 million coming in from the Why Not related land sale that was finalized. Money's being set aside for now within the authority's accounts. So it's determined if it's going to be remitted back to the Treasurer's office or retained for any future initiatives they're having us do. For your industrial revenue bond fees, we had over $17,000 coming in. So we deposit into your operating account for your usage going forward. We had a transfer from the city for the amphitheater, over $83,000 to reimburse them for a portion of some of the capital maintenance or capital improvements they had. And in this case, it was a parking lot gravel replacement as well as some Disability Act ramp replacements they had occur on site. And you'll see the corresponding outflow under your disbursements there as well. Going back to your receipts, and then final last item, we'll talk about the $3,200 worth of interest being earned on your savings account. For your disbursements, we had a one-time transfer for the landscape management. We had a corporate landing, $26,000 for the landscape management services with the city. Through their contracts, they'll be able to do the upkeep on the grounds out there at corporate landing. And it's a one-time transfer covering us for the full fiscal year, which our new fiscal year is fiscal year 2021. We also had a recurring management fee to Global Links, $13,000 payment going out each month for the basic management fee for the conduit. We had some deposits flowing out related to some dome site property acquisitions, $120,000 to secure some of the sites settled later for properties the authorities acquiring on behalf of the city. And then your basic operating account cash at the end of the month, $4,529,135.
Sean, if I could add one thing quickly. Related to the 1.8 million, just as an advance on something that we anticipate will be coming next month, we have applied for, as part of a regional team, for a Go Virginia grant to address industrial site readiness here in Hampton Roads. Our innovation park is one of the sites that was identified for the most easy to fully elevate to a shovel-ready status. So we do anticipate that we'll be coming back and asking that you all formally request part or all of the proceeds from that sale so that we can use it as a match for that grant to complete the infrastructure commitment for phases 2 and 3 within the park. And what would be great is if we're doing that, that means that we feel really good about the opportunity to share in that cost 50-50 with the Commonwealth. So just in advance on something that we hope is coming back to you next month.
Thank you.
This covers the operating account activity. You should also have the next slide being your incentive program. Over $7 million of cash on hand at the start of our new fiscal year. A loan receipt was interest income being earned on the checking account, just under $900 for that. For disbursement, we had Part B, part of the redevelopment program disbursement, $3,500 going out to 17 Speed Properties, partial payment for some of the submissions they've made to us. Below that, we had start of the Part E Small Business COVID-19 Response Awards, $250,000 going out. The third or fourth page of your financials will list all 30 companies who are receiving full pages of their grants. I won't try to list all of them out to you right now, but we had 27 different grant payees, 1 payroll, 1 general taxes, and 1 utilities grant, all being dispersed for the month of July. Below that, we had some legal fees for the Dome site, $2,500 being expended. And then we also had some bio-initiative funding, over $100,000 going out the door. We had payments for the bio-accelerator rent for July and August that occurred. We had some engineering fees related to the innovation park, as well as the consulting services for the bio-accelerator consultant being paid during that month as well. So you have ending cash on hand, $6,659,999. We'll carry over to our next slide here. We do a reconciliation of what's available. The big item here that happened in the month of July, we had a new appropriation come on the books. So we had an increase in your receivables, and the available funding jumps over $2 million from where it was at last month's meeting.
Thank you.
I also want to make the authority aware we did the authority's annual financial audit. Field work has begun as of last month. We're anticipating probably a presentation to you for the findings of those financials at your October meeting.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stiles.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request we received from the amphitheater. As you recall, earlier in the year, we abated the first 3 months of their ground rent. Unfortunately, they've had to cancel the remainder of their season. They furloughed their employees, and they have asked us to abate the remaining rent, which would work out to $52,000. Their ground rent under the lease is offset by real estate taxes paid, and their tax assessment for the year is $37,000. So if you do the math, it's $52,000.
They have no employees now?
Not locally. They've furloughed everyone. And so the general manager for the region, who's based in Washington, is
Sorry.
but they're hopeful. They've got concerts on the books for next year. They're hopeful to be able to bring everybody back,
I hope so.
but they've asked for this accommodation.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that one?
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Any comments?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Did we or did they explore and provide alternative uses for that property during this period while they can't do
As
concerts?
far as I know, they haven't looked into having third parties into the building because it really isn't, not that I'm aware of. They have explored the drive-in concert concept, but they're working with the governor's office and they haven't gotten to utilize the parking lots for that. I don't anticipate that happening.
Walmart doing that? I heard on the news that you were doing that.
There
Okay, I
was,
don't know.
Live Nation attempted it in a couple of other markets. I don't know how it works, but
COVID has hit us all.
yes, ma'am.
So the alternative solutions, other sources that other people are trying to obtain or that we might be talking about later, does that prohibit them from getting those as well, or how does that work?
The other,
So I think this action would be specific to our amphitheater and would not impact any other proposed activities in our community, right?
correct. This has nothing to do with the use. This is just under the lease because we're the owner of the property.
Were you asking if they might be eligible for other funding?
Other things in the city too.
Yeah. I guess this is the biggest thing that we can do is abate the rent.
Yes.
And we've done that for the golf course.
The golf course as well, because, again, it's because you happen to own the facilities. Yes, just the restaurant.
Okay, we had a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. Number 6, request for a waiver of the park design guidelines. Request for approval of resolution amending the development agreement with Stokes Properties Town Center. Mr. Steiner.
And this is good news. As you recall, we approved the little parcel next to Dick's. They're gonna build a hotel. They've asked for no money from us. They just want to be able to rely on the city's parking, or on the authority's parking rather. And the initial resolution said 120 spaces. The design has come in. They might actually be able to have more rooms, which would mean more spaces, and we didn't want there to be a hang-up in the financing. So we would ask just to amend the agreement to allow up to 145 spaces. No financial impact, and it's well within the excess parking in our traffic study.
That's great. Any questions? Jeff, did you? Oh, I thought maybe you were talking. Okay,
I was just waiting for the next one.
Move to approve.
thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Who moved that?
Mr. Brown?
And Lisa was second. Okay, we have 5, 6. Request for a waiver of the park design guidelines.
So, Madam Chair, fortunately, we were able to resolve this administratively with our colleagues in planning, so no action is required here by the authority.
So we go to the next one. Okay, request approval of resolution authorizing additional awards under EDIP Part E. Mr. Smith.
Hopefully, good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Hopefully you all received the email from Vicki with respect to the spreadsheets, so I can address any concerns you all have, questions. Ms. Murphy, we addressed the nonprofit piece. We tried to highlight it on this document so that you all are aware of the 2 nonprofits that we have.
And so the 2 highlighted nonprofits will be removed from,
So the idea here for us is we're continuing to move through the 497. This docket, all of which have been reviewed by the city auditor.
Correct.
Would advance us through the funding considerably. And with your permission, we would very much like to carry on and see if we can get this money out the door.
Thank you.
So this approval here brings us to 297 total funded grants at $2,027,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, and I have the advantage of previous conversation on this, but the 400,000 plus that remains, I know we have applications for grants that exceed that amount. And my understanding is we're having difficulty completing the due diligence process, getting responses, getting information. How do we proceed from here? It's been May, June, July, August, 3+ months since we started the applications. We have 400,000 left. If it takes another 3 months to do this, we're going to be in December. So what's the plan to get to the remaining 500,000?
So I would tell you, as we now advance this docket, I would tell you we've learned a great deal over the last 90 days about pulling this program together. What we would request is the ability to send, this is what we talked about Thursday afternoon, to send some sort of official guidance from the office that would allow basically three more weeks to get us whatever information that we needed in the event that we did not, from these remaining applicants. In the event that we did not have everything we needed from them in 3 weeks, we would then move on to others within the pool so that we could execute this by your next meeting.
Others within the pool, so there
So
are,
we had 497 total applicants within the pool, and we've been working through the list of basically the first 4 tranches to try to get complete information. There are probably another 15 to 20 that we could open up to right away, just that we're missing a couple of documents here or there, but they were beyond the point where we were oversubscribed. We could get those and then open the window again if you wanted to. in which case I think we could wrap this up quickly. And what would likely happen is some of the folks that we sent guidance to would reapply, but this time would reapply, we would hope, with a complete package. Nonetheless, we think we can wrap this up in 6 weeks, give or take.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that
Yeah.
along.
We agree. It's especially as we're going to talk about another pot of money that's coming down the pipeline here in just a minute. And so we recognize the need to wrap this program up so that we can move on to the next one. And I think you'll see some lessons learned in the next one on the administration side as well.
The last question on this. Did we resolve the question that I had raised regarding payment of checks jointly to the landlords and how that impacts PPP forgiveness applications when they're not paying the rent that's eligible for forgiveness?
Not completely, however, without going into too much detail, I anticipate it'll be resolved this evening. We lost a meeting down the road because of the hurricane, and that has moved everything 2 weeks. So I anticipate that we'll have information to report on that tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Have we reached out to because I know there was 200 or so in that original batch, or 250, and I know there was some concerns about communication. When we approved the last 200 and however many it was, did we send out a notice to those people saying, you've been awarded this money, here's the next step?
Yeah, we just sent out the last email, Ms. Murphy, last Friday to the remaining first resolution that was passed.
And that was the third round of those emails, correct? Yeah.
And so now we're asking people for their W-9 form and
Recapture agreement.
sign a recapture agreement.
That's right. If we have a completed file from you, we are obtaining W-9s and a recapture agreement. So that was the agreement that we made with the city auditor. The W-9 we have to have anyway, because we're gonna have to issue a 1099 to all of these folks, just like we do with our regular EDIP program. The recapture agreement was the way that we were able to provide the city auditor with the certainty that we were closing any gaps that he might have found. And I should tell you, there were no structural weaknesses that he found. There were 2 files that we had already flagged that would not have fit within the city council policy. The other things, and we really appreciate the thoroughness that the city auditor brought to this, but what he found was a series of what I would call small issues, where somebody had not checked a box, somebody had not provided a thorough enough explanation as to how they were impacted by the virus, that they provided us a lease, but it was a renewal, and it was not, or it was the original lease and it wasn't signed, so he could not definitively say that lease had been executed. And so we cleaned all of that up with the recapture agreement. And so that is, anytime we ask the city auditor to do an official review, there's a report that comes out with findings, and we have to then close out all of those findings. So the recapture agreement was the way that we could proactively have the individual applicants certify that everything the auditor was looking for was true. Of course, as is always the case, all of our recapture agreements allow him the ability to come back and do subsequent audits within that pool to ensure that they were honest in their disclosure.
Any other questions? Your motion,
And
there's another question, I guess.
Well, and Madam Chair, I'd just like to mention, and Alex, jump in if you need to, but this docket was provided to the authority in advance, and Alex worked with individual members of the disclosure related to abstentions on particular applicants within the pool, and those are on file.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, for the record, I've given Mr. Stiles a list of the applications on which I will be abstaining. And in an abundance of caution, I've included applications where my firm has represented the landlord in the past as well as the tenant. And Alex has that list on file.
Thank you.
We have some similar list from Mr. Brunke and Mr. Fetch.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Chair, to clarify, so your approval would be accepting those nonprofits that are shown as highlighted, is that correct?
No, the nonprofits are not exempt.
Our recommendation consistent with the,
Any exception to.
Excluding.
that's right, yeah, so, our recommendation consistent with the prior guidance from the authority would be that the not-for-profits were excluded at this point.
Thank you. Motion?
So moved with my listed abstentions.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. How do we do? Yeah. Sorry for Lisa to do it. Okay, request for, okay, Mr. Couch.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the authority, good seeing you this morning. Real quick, we have a request from LifeNet to extend their EDIP timeline, or process timeline. A lot of disclosures there, so I'll give you a second to kind of take that in, and this is relevant to a project we did with them back in 2006. We recently received a request from LifeNet asking you to allow them to extend their EDIP performance period from their 2017 EDIP award for a period of 1 year. That award, I should have put it up here, I'm sorry about that, was due this month. And they expressed in their letter to us that they've had some negative impacts because of the COVID pandemic, and primarily they've had some hiring issues associated with that. Just a little background on LifeNet Health for the folks who may not be familiar. They're a local homegrown company, been in Virginia Beach for 38 years. They have their headquarters on Concert Drive. Their mission is for tissue procurement and the education of tissue procurement for the transplantation, for surgical applications, and a variety of modalities as they work throughout the U.S. They're the largest freestanding tissue bank in the United States. They're a 501c3. They do not pay depot tax or sales tax, but they do pay real estate tax and personal property tax. Just a quick snapshot of their footprint in the U.S. Their headquarters is here in Virginia Beach. They do have presence in the Northwest and also in Florida. And for those folks who may be familiar, they have 6 different locations here in Virginia Beach. Just a quick snapshot of where they are in Virginia Beach. Bayside Road, Ward Court, Sabre, London Bridge, Chandler Creek, and also their Concert Drive headquarters locations with actually 2 different buildings, their headquarters location and the regenerative medicine location. When we worked with them on 2017, they have 3 different locations identified there. So back in 2017, they did a 3-facility expansion all at one time, and there are those 3 facilities there. And that was to help them accommodate space in their headquarters facility and also accommodate growth in these other areas where they were having some rapid growth. They were looking to have research, clinical, administrative positions and production positions added to their staffing. In 2019, they came back to us with a new opportunity to increase their footprint in Virginia Beach because they had an opportunity to capture a star researcher, which is very good for us, who worked in the liver testing primarily and taking drugs and testing on the liver, and that's very advantageous for pharmaceutical companies, and we worked with them on that, so just be aware of that. We'll touch base on that in a second. So their locations that they had in 2017, London Bridge was a 100,000 square foot warehouse expansion, and in Sabre in 17 they expanded 20,000 square feet for an office use, and then came back to us in 2019 for another 20,000 square feet to be a star researcher. And in Bayside, which they had an existing facility of 54,000 square feet, they expanded another 18,000 square feet, but also renovated their existing facility at that time. And these are the 3 multi-locations that they expanded in that 1 EDIP award. So with that, they had significant capital investment with those 3 facilities being expanded, totaling over $12.2 million, and you can see it distributed there between the different facilities. And we have worked with them in the past for several years, going back to 2003, where we did a land sale with them with city-owned land of 15.8 acres, another 6.5 acres in 2010, 22 acres total. We have done 5 EDIP awards, including the 2 we're talking about now. totaling $1.9 million. The one in 2017 did also include Commonwealth Opportunity Funds associated with that project, matching our $700,000 in EDIP, and they also had VGIP money, which is job training funds associated with the state through a different department. Here's a snapshot of how they have expanded in Virginia Beach over the years. You can see the strata of capital investment. Their total capital investment in Virginia Beach at this point is $73 million. And we're looking at the red column of 2017, and we're just talking about the jobs portion of this. I think Sean's in the back of the room. They've met all their capital investment criteria to date with us. And that EDIP award that we presented to you in 2017, awarded to them, was split between capital investment and jobs. So you can see that the total project, we had 321 jobs. We didn't count 20 jobs because there were APZ1 associated projects, so we excluded those. So we only required 301 jobs as part of the EDIP award, and they have created 115 of those jobs to date. So that's kind of where we are. Average salary is $55. And as I mentioned, in 2017, they did get a Commonwealth Opportunity Fund award as well for $700,000, matched our EDIP at that point in time. And they also got VGIP money, $900 a job, $288,000 associated with that potential for the jobs created. So we're here today recommending and requesting of you to allow LifeNet to extend their performance period for the EDIP award for the $700,000 EDIP that was granted in 2017 for 1 year, due next August. So that's where I'd be glad to try to answer any questions for it.
Questions? Motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're happy to have them here, aren't we?
Yes, we are, very.
Great. Okay. Business assistant, CARES Act, which who's going to talk about the CARES Act? Mr. Adams.
Vicki, if you can come up here real quick, I seem to have lost my PDFs, if you can throw those back up for me. While Vicki's making that change, or hoping that, I'm sure that was an operator error on my part.
No.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when everybody can be here again, and I can go back to the other end of the table and somebody else can do this part again. But
You're
Yeah,
learning.
me too.
that's right. But quickly, some lessons learned from EDIP Part E. One, it was as you all have been with us for throughout this process. It's we've all seen firsthand that it's never easy to establish a new program in government, and that's exactly what we've done here. And so with the best of intentions to get this money out the door, it has not gone as quickly as I had hoped it would. And so the great news is City Council is in the process of they have accepted $39 million from the Commonwealth of Virginia and CARES Act money, and that's being appropriated now. And we anticipate that a considerable portion of that, we think that half of it will go to specific needs within the city organization. The other half will go to call it economic vitality. Some of that money, some of that second half will be used for individual support within the community, but a large portion of it will come for business assistance. And so, knowing that we had this additional funding coming through, we wanted to be sure that we were learning from EDIP Part E and making sure that we could move a little more efficiently going forward. So if you could, let me just see the application first, Vicki. That one right there, thank you. So this is not fundamentally different from a draft document that we showed you last month. What we learned in this program was, one, we've got to be, the application can only come in one way. This is 100% my mistake. In EDIP Part E, we allowed for both electronic and on-site submission of the application. We knew that we would have a less sophisticated and smaller business than we had traditionally been dealing with for EDIP purposes, so we thought that it might be necessary to receive those on-site. What I created was an administrative hurdle for my team that has added time, and so in the interest of getting the money out the door, we have corrected that, and what we have here is a fillable form. It's a PDF. This will be the sole means of applying for this program. As you scroll down, you will also see where in our initial application, in the interest of being thorough, we requested all of the information we would traditionally have with an EDIP, plus some statements specifically about what happened within the virus. As you roll through here, you'll see a much simpler, if you'll scroll down for me, Vicki, you'll see a much simpler fillable form. If we'll stop here for 1 second. We are asking if the applicant has applied for and received an EDIP Part E grant. Now, for us, we don't think that should specifically be a disqualifier. However, we would take your guidance on that. If you believe that, if you all are comfortable with us moving forward, and I'll tell you how we plan to rank these in a moment, but if you all are comfortable with EDIP Part E recipients also being eligible for this program, then yes, sir.
You're dealing with small businesses, small proprietors. I don't think they're gonna know what Part E is versus Part D versus Part C. Can you define that, or?
That's a great point. So we'll change this to, have you applied for small business assistance related to pandemic from the city specifically? Because that would be the Part E's provision. And so I can tell you, the only place where we think a prohibition makes sense is if we get subsequent guidance from the federal government that suggests that a local award would kick you out of eligibility for this additional CARES Act money. But as we're planning to call it a lottery system for award of this money, we don't think that one should kick you out of the other. They're different pots of money, they're different programs, and we'll show you why in a moment. But obviously we're happy to take your guidance on that. If you would scroll down a bit more.
I would think you would consider prioritizing. I mean, you can't imagine someone have gotten it and haven't gotten it, and then one that's gotten it jumps ahead. I would think there would be.
So that is one of the things that we learned in the scoring of EDIP Part E. There's really no way to pick between losses, because if you own the business, whatever loss you had, it's as real, it's a loss. It's as real to you no matter what you do. And so in this case, and this is something that we heard loud and clear from City Council as well, there was the thought that a lottery system would work. And so how would that be? We would, it wouldn't be as basic as casting lots. What we would effectively do is come back and we would, in the order in which they were received, run them 1 through however many. Let's say the lottery would go, at first we take every 5th application out of that pool. So that way everybody who applies within the operating within the window has a chance. Once we're through that, we see where we are, and then we'll do 2 and 6, and then 3 and 7. And the idea would be we work through just sort of randomly grabbing applications. Everything would be listed in the order in which it was received, and then we would work through in that sort of random method until we had spent all the money that we had. We think that is the fairest way to do it, and it keeps us from getting into the place of picking between losses and saying that one business had a greater effect than another.
No, I'm referring to already received money. I would think the ones that haven't would be.
So if you wanted to, we could say, we could take anyone who, because of the way that we've set this up, we'll have that data, so we could certainly put anyone who had already received assistance at the bottom of the list, work through the first list first, and then go to that as a second priority, if that was something that you all wanted us to do. We would just need your guidance on that.
Well, and I think you would need to reword your question, given that we've only handed out 40 or so checks. So, yeah, have you been approved, or have you been notified that you've received approval? Because there are 300 or some people that haven't received a grant yet. So,
That's great edit, absolutely.
I understand we're trying to keep this simple, but we need to,
No, that's a good edit.
they need to know if they got the money yet. And then the other point there is, the last round, we didn't have a question about, are you a small minority women-owned business? And because we didn't ask the question, we weren't able to track that. And that may be something that we want to consider adding to the question this go-around, so that we're able to track it at least.
That's an easy add if that's your will. We'll be relying, of course, on the business to disclose, but I think for purposes of this application, it's good to make that voluntary.
Anything else? Thank you.
I have just a couple. Just on format, we've referred to type of loss.
And that should be type of expense, and we're going to jump over and show you a list to come to your question from last month in just a moment.
Okay, so we're going to change that to some type of expense
Yes.
reimbursement.
Yes, sir.
On the reimbursement side, some of these expenditures are going to be a little bit more substantial than others in relative. Is it only previously expended monies, or can a contract, an executed contract be sufficient to request payment?
And so, coming to that quickly, the next
We're
thing.
going to get to that later, that's fine, I'll hold off.
Yeah, and so, but we do need to have a conversation about that specifically in just a moment. And so, Nick, if you would scroll down to, all right, so we've got type of loss, if you would jump over to that Word file. Mr. Brunke, one of the things that you asked us for specifically last month was the Word file down here. That you asked us for specifically was a broader list of categories related to potential qualifying expenses.
Right.
And so, this is just a free-form stream of consciousness brainstorm that I had that, that gets us to, it gets us to 16 categories, but if you look, you had asked me for somewhere between, you said up to 25. And so if you look, I did do some grouping as it relates to services. So I try to think of anything that might be attributable. It's our hope that you'll go back from a thresholding standpoint, that you'll allow any expense that was incurred related to the pandemic after March 1st. We think that a maximum of $25,000 per award is appropriate in this space because it allows us to get to the broadest possible piece of our local community. Also, that we know, I do anticipate that in the area of IT equipment and IT services, that we have a lot of businesses that'll get to $25,000 in a hurry. And I think this is and also we'll have some folks just on PPE and on workplace modification that will get to $25,000 in a hurry. So so here are 16 categories that I think that I hope get to the specificity you were looking for, Mr. Brunke. And so you'll see, and I took it all the way down to staffing. Why staffing? Well, we know that a number of our businesses, had a great deal, faced real challenge getting their employees to just come back to work. We had a lot of businesses that didn't lay anybody off whose employees stopped working to take advantage of other programs that were available from the federal government. And so we've heard loud and clear that a lot of our employers have incurred significant cost in, one, temporary employees, two, permanent employees. Now, there's a conversation for us to have about permanent employees, but then also the training of existing staff and new staff. Temporary employees are easy for me to get to. If it's a permanent employee, I don't know that it's directly I don't know that we can say permanently that it's directly attributable to the virus. But that said, it might be. Somebody might have hired a safety coordinator or a safety training coordinator or someone to oversee specifically the checking of temperatures of employees that come in. And also, if you're a restaurateur, you may very well have hired someone to handle compliance with executive orders, seating restrictions, additional security to make sure that, I know that a number of our restaurants, for example, have hired additional security personnel to ensure that we are strictly compliant with the 10% or the 10 p.m. Cutoff that the governor has established. And so I think it's worth talking about because there's a real expense here, but I need a little guidance from you all as to know that you're comfortable with it.
Well, I think you're talking about a $25,000 cap.
Yes, sir.
I would not get into future contracts. I mean, that's just not
What?
future contracts of what they intend on paying. I mean, this is $25,000 a drop in the bucket of what the expenses were that actually occurred. I mean, they're $25,000 a week, or a day sometimes. But, you had to pay extra dollars to people to come in per hour, but getting into future contracts, I wouldn't even consider it.
So the one place where, and I hear you, the one place that we might want to talk about is, let's say someone contracted for something a piece of equipment in April to help respond with this. And that equipment is, we're seeing this particularly in the manufacturing space. There's a lot of industrial supply that people are struggling to get because ports are just beginning to reopen. If somebody contracted for that in April, but it's not going to arrive until, September or October, but they need it as part of their response, I do think it would make sense to look at that.
So
But
long as there's a deposit.
Yes, sir, that's right.
I think there are two pieces of guidance on this, right? There's the FAQs that came from the federal government with regard to the CARES Act dollars. And then, I think it's tonight, the city manager is gonna make a presentation to city council. And in that presentation, it includes guidelines, but one of the areas that has been included as far as reimbursable is this, where you've got a contract, but it hasn't been satisfied yet. And you wouldn't get the actual payment until you spend the dollars, so it would still be a reimbursement, but it does contemplate that there would be this universe of costs that you could have where you've contracted for the services, or you've got a fully, a contract based on what the costs are gonna be that you would submit for reimbursement, so.
That's
I think with that guidance, we would need to sort of keep that as a possibility.
And so the one place that we would add is, so Ms. Murphy's referring to the 18 or 20 questions that basically the FAQs that we attacked from the federal government on this, and diving in beyond that guidance a step further. I think one of the key pieces to that is ensuring that service was properly contracted for with the intent to consume during this period. What the sort of more specific guidance that we have just recently gotten suggests is we should not contract for a service today that won't, the consumption of which won't begin until January 1, for example. Because I should mention, all of this money's got to be out the door by December 31, and so there is an intent that this that these services for which we are contracting here would at least begun being consumed prior to December 31, if that makes any sense.
Just so people know, there's a different pot of funding that council will likely allocate that would be separate funding to individuals and nonprofits. So it's not like nonprofits are being left out. They would be in a bucket that wouldn't be administered by economic development.
But as is the case, our focus is on the business community, and so we do anticipate that our program here is focused exclusively on business.
And Bill and I were at a Virginia Beach Vision Zoom meeting, and they expressed to us both concern for nonprofits, but also that this costed out contracts be included where the funds hadn't yet been spent. And it looks like that's something that the city manager is going to recommend.
I don't want to speak for him, but we believe that to be true, yes, ma'am. And so, as we've drawn it up, we think that this is if we could jump back over to the application, we think that this is a simpler way to get to the money, or to get the money out the door. And here's why: this program is based exclusively on reimbursement. It's based on expenses. We've worked with the city's finance director and her team, as well as the team in budget and management services, to build a framework that is consistent with what is allowable by both the federal government and the governor's office. And so, with your permission, because as Ms. Murphy mentioned, we anticipate that the city manager will request final appropriation of this evening. We'd like to move forward.
I just like to compliment you on it, that's all.
Thank you very
It's a
much.
fantastic way to approach it, and it's a good part of it.
Can somebody come back twice on the reimbursement? And what I mean is, you're asking for an application in August, and they've incurred expenses as of this date. Let's say they request $15,000 in reimbursement. Can they come back in November and request another 10?
I don't see why not. If we've got money available, I'd say, this is one-time money from the federal government. It's my goal to get it into the hands of the business community. I think it will go faster than that from an obligation standpoint. But if we've got it available and someone has not hit their cap yet, I I don't see a reason not to let them come back, unless you all do all.
I think what you're saying is you need to, it needs to be in a, part of the process, because if this thing continues, let's say it continues to December 31st, where the additional PPP, everything has to be done. It would be nice to say what you've incurred to date, and then and then there's a November deadline for its additional.
Sure.
But I think that ought to be in the,
Where will that list be, the Word document list, to help people understand what might
So
be?
the list I just showed you, we're gonna add it to the, so what I heard last month was you would have liked, I think the intent is to have it added to the application. I just wanted to show you all the list to make sure you liked it. So the idea is we'll add it to the application, and the individuals will select the type of expense that they have incurred as part of the application. And we'll allow them to I think this is an important thing to mention. I didn't say just a second ago. We'll allow them to select more than one. I mean, our goal is to get the money out the door, and Mr. Stanley, to your point, we have businesses that are incurring $25,000 losses per week. And so the goal for us is to get this in the hands of the business community to meet whatever expense that they've had assigned to this, so.
and will it be as of the application date, I assume? I guess that's more of what we're.
That's right. I mean, so to have the, that's right, it'll be money that you have spent as of the date of the application. And so that's where the advanced contracting would make sense. If you, for example, bought a piece of software, and you bought an annual license and you fully funded that annual license, I would, even though you had not fully consumed that service, I think it's wholly appropriate to come in and submit a reimbursement request for that, because you only did it because of the pandemic. So,
Would you contemplate that people would be attaching somehow their receipts to this, or?
we'll have to have the receipts so that we
Part of
have.
the follow-up?
That's right. I mean, so that's the thing. We'll need the receipt, the paid invoice, canceled checks, whatever. But we'll have to have some means of demonstrating that the business has paid for whatever it is we're reimbursing against. Yes, ma'am.
I'll move it.
Right. Just one other thought that I had, back in March, I and probably other people thought this wouldn't last the number of months that it has. And because we're getting, we had 2.5 million in funding, and now we're getting into upwards of 7 million, if not more. I think it would make sense for this body to have a smaller task force to deal just with these emergency funding requests and the dollars that we have to get out the door so that we can get them out quickly. And I think it would help, just so we're not all sitting around trying to edit a form to make sure that we do that appropriately. So I would make that suggestion.
So we all, at the staff level, we always want to be sensitive to your time, but we would welcome that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know so many other groups that we've talked to have emergency task forces just to deal with COVID losses and COVID expenses, so.
So it's something we would ask the nominating committee to come up with as well as the new officers?
Certainly, or it could be that the chair could appoint
Check a point.
2 members.
Well, the two that have been working on it are Lisa and who else has been working with you?
Bill.
Mr. Brunke.
Yeah, and I would be happy to work with Bill on that.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great.
Okay, we don't need a vote
I'll
on
second the motion.
We need a vote, ma'am.
I do need you to.
Need a motion to approve.
The motion?
I did.
What? Thank you. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you for being willing to work on the priorities. I have just a wonderful news today, appointing a nominating committee. I've worked with the city for a long time, and it's time because of the virus. This is one of the reasons I want to share. You probably realize during the virus, I was not willing, I did not come to the meetings, and we need to have someone younger, or, I think everyone's younger than I am, who can come to all the meetings. But, Peter, would you serve as chair and work with, he's gonna be here until the 31st.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay,
Can't.
right? Can he do it if he does it
I
by the
would,
31st?
probably not, because then he can't make the report.
But then if he works with someone else or finds
All right,
someone else.
your,
okay.
your discretion, Madam Chair.
Joe, would you help him? Would you all be willing, and then Joe could make the report? Thank you very much. Okay, Peter, we're gonna miss you. And, let's see, would you read this, Lisa? Well, my glasses keep falling off. Okay.
All right, a resolution of the City of Virginia Beach Development Authority to Peter Mueller. Whereas the Virginia Beach Development Authority of the City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, was created to serve certain purposes, among which are those of promoting industry and developing trade by inducing manufacturing, industrial, governmental, and commercial enterprises to locate or remain in the Commonwealth of Virginia by assisting in the acquisition, construction, equipping, enlargement, and improvement of commercial facilities. And whereas Peter Mueller was appointed to the authority on September 1st, 2011, and served for 8 years with distinction until August 31st, 2020. And whereas during his tenure, Virginia Beach experienced unprecedented growth, expansion, and prosperity. And whereas this commercial growth has led to the increase in jobs for the citizens, both of the City of Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads. And whereas this commercial growth has provided revenue to support many services necessary to a young, thriving community. And whereas the support of dedicated citizens such as Peter Mueller has made Virginia Beach a better place to live, work, and recreate. And now therefore, we, the City of Virginia Beach Development Authority, hereby recognize the invaluable service and contributions made by Peter Mueller to the betterment of the City of Virginia Beach, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Virginia Beach Development Authority of the City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, to be affixed hereto this 18th day of August in the year of our Lord 2020, and it's signed by our chairman, Dorothy L. Wood.
Thank you. That's
Oh,
Mr.
sorry,
Mueller.
that's for you.
Thank you.
Peter,
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
we're
much.
gonna miss you very much. We have a few tokens. Development Authority, thank you for your 8 years of service. You've done so much for us.
Thank you
When
very
we
much.
go to the steel, what was that, a birthday party? We didn't get even more thankful for you. And you worked so much with the sister city. That's where I first met you. And Peter, let's see, we have some gifts for you. We're gonna miss you. Please come back and see us.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed working with you. It was my pleasure, you know, I'm gonna miss you all. Okay,
We'll
thank you.
miss you. I'll see you at Primland,
Oh, yeah.
although I can't play golf. We have the, and what else do we need to do today?
Any member reports? And if not, it would be.
No, I know.
Mr. Adams.
Mr. Adams.
One thing from me, Madam Chair, and then I'm going to recognize Mr. Trower with an update on something you all asked for a couple of months ago. But at each of your, I guess, seats this morning, there was a copy of the Wall Street Journal. Now, it's not today's journal. This is the journal from July 27th. But we thought we wanted to share this with you because if you'll turn to page 5, you'll see.
Is that the funny,
Sir?
the funny on page 5?
I wish, yeah. What you'll find this is, we felt that the work that you all did in the 90 days leading up to the end of the fiscal year was noteworthy, particularly during a pandemic. And so we ran this ad nationally, announcing the $136 million in capital investment that your activities brought to our community, as well as the 756 new jobs that will be located here in Virginia Beach to help us continue to push our economy forward. What you'll see here is a comprehensive look at our city, and we took this as an opportunity to not just talk about what was happening here, but to tell our story just a little bit, because one of the things that we're seeing already, and it's great, one of the things that we had hoped this ad would achieve, and that it did, is it would bring us some, I would tell you, it would make us a little more noteworthy in some of the major metros north and east of here. We know that the world of professional office coming out of this pandemic will be different. We also know that not just professional office, that most sectors within our economy will be affected. We think that Virginia Beach and our less dense, less urban form of development makes us an ideal location for some of these businesses that are looking for new places to land. The last time, I was doing some research, the last time we saw something like this was late 80s, early 90s, when the cost of real estate in the Northeast began to push people out. And I think many of you were here and remember the real estate boom that we had during that time. Well, we're built out now, so I don't know that there'll be quite the new home starts that we saw then. But what I do think is, I think that you will see this continue to drive our economy forward with 90,000 rooftops, gigabit connectivity to most of those homes. We're uniquely located. We're uniquely able to deliver what we think is the future of work, and where we anticipate that telework will be more widely utilized nationwide. So this is the first piece. There'll be a series of follow-up pieces. Going forward, we'll try to use more digital media and video to tell this story, as opposed to this going back to print. But we thought it was, the Wall Street Journal in this country is still the publication for business. We thought it made sense to tell our story there. So thank you all for the good work you do.
Thank you. I read it, and I guess I didn't read it carefully because I didn't see it in our Wall Street Journal. I'm afraid I watch it and do it.
All right, and now I'm going to recognize Cole, who you all gave us an assignment a couple of months ago, and Cole is going to report out.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to report that we followed up with something you requested on. We wanted to just highlight a great accomplishment by 3 Lansdowne High School seniors here recently. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the competition that they were asked to enter, that was a national competition on building an underwater robot with functioning sonar, was recently canceled. So these students who had partnered with a local defense contractor for the funding were all excited to show off their great creation and their entrepreneurship here of starting their business with this underwater robot that it ended up being canceled, so they didn't have anyone to show this off to. So some members of the General Assembly, Councilwoman Rosemary Wilson, Councilman Michael Berlucci, members of the school board, and our department went to the Weston Pool to see them put the show on to show us the sonar working robot. And they actually were mentored by an engineer from Steele, these young students were, and encouraged to continue with their engineering education at Old Dominion University. And it was a great experience to see the future of our workforce, to partner with economic development, with our school system, and then the private sector in Steele to show what young people can do here in Virginia Beach when we all work together. So here's a picture of the students with Councilman Berlucci here, and Councilwoman Wilson was in attendance as well at the Weston. So it's a great thing that our young people are doing.
Thank you so much. Are they working on the alternative agriculture that I hear about so much now?
I can look into that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what that is, do you?
I can tell you we are engaged in that effort. And without going much further on that one, I will say there will likely be an ongoing education component associated with that project.
Thank you. Whereas the Virginia Beach Development Authority, the City of Virginia Beach, has convened a closed meeting on this date.
There you go.
The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by 2.23711 Code of Virginia as amended for the following purpose. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders and discussion in the terms or scope of such contract where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A30. Publicly held properties, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real properties for a public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. Your motion?
So moved.
Second?
David Byrne,
Yes.
William Brown,
Yes.
William Brunke,
Yes.
Taylor Franklin,
Yes.
Peter Mueller,
Yes.
Lisa Murphy,
Yes.
Mike Standing,
Yes.
Joe Strange.
Yes.
Dot Wood.
Yes. Okay, the first one.